Welcome, my name is Kelly. I own Dog Kind and I specialize in confidence building for extremely fearful, feral or semi-feral, shut down, anxious dogs. And today we're going to talk about the idea of coddling a dog who is fearful and whether or not that's a good idea. It was an interesting discussion that we had in the Facebook group's community chats recently, and I thought it might be good to talk about it a little more from a behavioral perspective. Okay, so is it bad to coddle my fearful dog? And there are multiple definitions of coddling. Today we're going to talk about protection versus exposure to scary things. Who is this for? It's for you. If you have a fearful, anxious, or skittish dog, you've heard that coddling or babying your dog will make them worse, more fearful, but you've also heard that you should protect and comfort your dog, and so you're not really sure what to do. Now, before we decide whether coddling is good or bad, we need to have some definition for it. And so based on those of you who contributed to the discussion in the community chat, these were sort of the main themes. One was sheltering or minimizing exposure to scary stuff, so not forcing them to be around things they're afraid of. The other was comforting, so things like petting, cuddling, talking to the dog when they're scared, giving them treats. So is it bad? My training is in behavior, and so my question the way I look at this will usually come back to behavior. And the real question to me is, how does whatever it is you're talking about affect your dog's behavior? And it's very individual. Anything to do with behavior is very individual. It could go either way, positive or negative, depending on what your actions are. So what exactly are you doing in terms of quote unquote coddling, and also how does that then affect your dog's behavior in particular, which may be totally different from how another dog is affected. So today let's talk through one of these an example that's relevant to the sheltering idea, the idea that if you protect your dog from scary stuff, then you are coddling them, essentially. So this is a theoretical example, but one that is pretty similar to many real life dogs that I work with. Let's say you have a dog who is afraid to leave their safe space. So they have a crate or a closet or a room, and they're not really comfortable leaving. Maybe they don't leave at all, or maybe they only leave it at nighttime when everyone's in bed. And your options here, if we're going to compare coddling versus no coddling, would be sheltering your dog. You just let your dog do what they want to do and stay in their hiding spot when they want. Or there is sometimes the opinion that, well, they'll never get better if you do that. You need to block access to the hiding spot so that they are forced to sort of confront their fears. So which is better, sheltering or not sheltering? So, of course, I have my own opinions based on my knowledge and experience, but I think it might be helpful to walk through some possible outcomes and why they might happen. This first outcome is, let's say you choose to let your dog hide when they want. And this is how it can have a positive outcome. That sort of sheltering or quote-unquote coddling strategy can work for your dog. Say all you do is you go in to feed your dog, and maybe you scatter some treats around the safe space when you leave. And over time, the dog acclimates to household sights, sounds, and smells from their safe space. They associate you coming into the room with food, which is a good thing. And they start to maybe venture out a tiny bit out of their bed or whatever and find treats, the treats that you have left. And so that's kind of great, because that means that moving out of the safe space hopefully will be reinforced by those treats they find. So that's a positive outcome of allowing the dog to just hide as much as they want. Now, here is a less positive outcome. Let's say you do all the same things, you just feed the dog, scatter treats, and then leave. But the dog is too afraid to ever come out and find those treats, and so they just don't get any better, because they can have their basic needs met and continue hiding, and they're too afraid to try new things. And that can happen for sure. Okay, now let's look at the flip side. What if you decide, I don't want to coddle this dog, they need to be exposed to the stuff they're afraid of. So I'm going to not allow the dog to go into the hiding spot. I'll block it. Maybe I'll pull them out if they won't come out on their own. But I'll offer treats once they're out to try to, get them to be more comfortable outside of their hiding spot. Now, this is an example of how this can go poorly. You might have a dog who is still terrified, is perhaps more terrified now, probably more terrified now that they are no longer allowed to hide. They're too afraid to eat the treats you're trying to give them, and the dog is scared of you. So the dog keeps trying to hide in other locations around the house, runs away from you when you approach. And then you end up with that dog who actually has more of what you might call fearful behaviors, or even worse, aggressive behaviors being reinforced, trying to hide, trying to run away because they're even more scared. And if they can't do that, then sometimes aggression is the next thing that happens. If the dog doesn't feel they don't have other choices, they need to try something different to keep themselves safe. So that's an example of how blocking access to a hiding spot, which a lot of people think is sort of the flip side of coddling, can go poorly. Now, is it ever possible for this to go well? Sure. Let's say you block a hiding spot, so the dog's scared, probably, but not so scared that the dog is not able to eat. And you're lucky enough the dog will eat, and then they start moving around, they get more treats, those behaviors get reinforced, and they eventually are able to be more comfortable out in the house, out of their hiding spot. So am I saying that both are equally good options, sheltering versus blocking a hiding spot? No. In both cases, the examples I just talked you through, the best case scenario is the dog moving around and eating outside their hiding spot, right? Doing behaviors that we want them to learn and getting good things for them. However, the worst case scenarios are very different. In your let the dog hide example, which many people consider coddling, you have a dog who has no progress, which means you have to try something else. You may have to adjust how you're working with the dog, possibly consider medication, whatever. But the dog's not worse off. Whereas in the worst case scenario for a dog who you've prevented from hiding, you can have a dog who has much worse fear and possibly even develops aggressive tendencies, aggressive behaviors. So this is my opinion, but it is an informed opinion. I think that denying a terrified dog the one place they feel safer, even if it's well-intentioned, you think it's necessary to help your dog overcome their fears, it's risky, as we just talked about, that worst case scenario, worsened fear, potential aggression. It's also not terribly kind to the fearful dog. And luckily, it's unnecessary. We do not need to block access to hiding spots for these dogs to develop confidence and build skills. Okay, here are your action steps for today if this applies to you at all. If your dog wants to hide, please let them. Make good things available in or near the hiding spot, but then just let them be if that's what they need at the moment. And if you want to know what else to do, please come to tomorrow's free training. It's the last one I'm running for a while. And I'll give you the sign-up link eventually when my slide changes. Here we go, dogkindtraining.com/webinar. This is the last one I'll do until late fall, sort of October probably. So please join me and we can talk more about what you can do, say if you're in that situation where your dog's hiding and not getting better, for instance.